Let us begin this edition by informing you that on Tuesday, President Paul Kagame chaired a Presidential Advisory Council meeting to discuss various topics, including the COVID-19 pandemic and current affairs. Now, the meeting brings together Rwandan and international experts who offer strategic advice to the President and the government. Louise Mushikiwabo, who is the current Secretary General of the International Organization of the Francophonie, also participated. Tuesday also saw Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Health and Finance and Economic Planning brief the diplomatic corps on the national COVID-19 response and economic recovery plan. The three ministers gave extensive explanations on how the country has continued to deal with the pandemic since the first case was detected in Rwanda back in March 2020. Following that briefing by the cabinet members, we were able to speak to one of the participants in that meeting, Mr. Ford Ndeyaye, who is the UN resident coordinator for Rwanda. Take a look.
Mr. Ndiaye, earlier today the diplomatic corps was briefed by three cabinet members on Rwanda's COVID-19 response and the economic recovery plan. What was your take on how the country is handling this global pandemic?
I think, of course, as many countries, Rwanda did face the third wave. But we feel very safe in Rwanda and the situation is improving. To me, it has to do with a strong political will and leadership, a clear, transparent plan guided by WHO and other stakeholders on both health, preparedness and response plan, and also a socio-economic recovery plan with economic recovery fund. Measures taken, in my humble view, are scientifically and evidence-based grounded and are also trying to balance health and economic goals. I also want to commend the discipline of the communities who well informed as respecting the preventive measures. In addition, the most important aspect now is the vaccination rollout, ensuring that no one is left behind. I have to highlight the strong cooperation and partnership with development partners, including UN and other initiatives, be it COVAX with WHO, UNICEF, Gavi and CEPI, and AVAT with the African Union. The strong communication, and you journalists also did play an important role, with the community engagement, including the Sindahoka. And of course, we shall not pull back. Kumeha Kumuhetu. There has been also clear guidance adopted throughout all the process, and regular review and, of course, of the progress. And above all, a very strong, high-level management, which is the cabinet and as a coordination mechanism. And I think also the frontline workers' dedication was paramount on all these achievements.
And what about the challenges that Rwanda and indeed other African countries have faced when it comes to vaccines, and how African leaders have taken decisive actions to address those challenges? What sort of support can they expect from the international community?
Yeah, of course, as the minister mentioned, there are challenges because we need to vaccinate 7.8 million people. And as I mentioned earlier, we are having now 900,000. And we need more vaccine, both in kind, with bilateral support, with COVAX, with also the AVAT, as I mentioned. And there, the UN and other development partners are putting their effort for affordable and equitable access to vaccine. And I think it's yielded some results, as the minister did present, because the COVAX supply of vaccine has increased, and we also are receiving more bilateral support. The second aspect that the minister mentioned was the technical expertise in drugs regulatory framework to strengthen the Rwanda Food and Drug Authority and to prepare for vaccine manufacturing. The third is on enhancing the community awareness. it is important that we all know that we'll be out of this pandemic together, both at country level and between countries. That's why I do think that the initiative taken by Rwanda, South Africa, and Senegal, trying to manufacture vaccines is an important step. And WHO and other development partners are supporting that move. That is a technical leadership, guidance, advocacy, and of course, on getting more resources. As the Minister of Finance mentioned, they have this economic recovery fund, which is now touching more on the informal sector with the women and youth business-led activities. And it is important that we get more resources. And of course, we commend Rwanda for successfully raising this $620 million from Eurobond that will support that. We thank also other development partners who have provided financial support to this economic recovery plan. And that's a way I think we also need to put together our efforts. At global level, what we are trying to do is the UN Secretary General has led a powerful advocacy on making sure that Africa gets more of the new special drawing rights from the IMF, which is $650 billion US. But we think that Africa could get more of those resources because of the shrinking fiscal space and the necessity to get more resources for social protection, for building forward better, and of course, for having a more resilient system, be it in health, education, and other elements of the recovery. And two last points on the support that I think we need to really put our efforts together is globally we need 11 billion doses really to support the vaccination program. Because we know that it's not about fairness or justice. It is the only way to reduce new variants that will put our job better at risk or more difficult to handle with this pandemic. We also need to support more efforts on the debt and financial management, on transfer of technology, on discussing the patent so that it will be free for the vaccine that would help us have access to more vaccine, as the African Union is toward having 400 million doses that would help increase access to vaccine for African countries. I think that getting the health response plan right, getting the socio-economic response plan right are important ways that development partners can support on. And that's also what UN at global, regional, and national level are supporting through the WHO leadership, support to the Center for Disease Control Africa, and support to building more resilient public health institutions. Because we are not out of all these shocks and all this, pandemic and other elements. That's a way we see really ongoing support to Rwanda, both health crisis and, of course, the socio-economic recovery. Now, your question on the lessons, if I may end by that.
Yes, please continue.
I think that what we have learned for this from this pandemic is we are living in a very interconnected, very interdependent world, and there is a necessity of more solidarity. Because what happened in one country could really derail the overall economy. So it is important that we know that we are in this pandemic together and will be out of this pandemic together. We also have learned the importance of inclusion. When society is having excluded population, maybe we might think that we are safe because we are at the level where we have all the purchasing power. But this pandemic has taught us that it's not about money you have. It's about making sure that we are all safe together, that we'll build back the value chain, that will bring back more jobs, more inclusion, more stable and more peaceful economy. Even it's curing the conflict. We even know that now 120 million more people will be food insecure. In 1 year, it happened because of the disruption of this economic chain and others. I think to end, we need also more global governance, functioning governance that is engaging countries, that is building more strong political will on the general threat against humanity. We are one humanity. Both the climate change, the inequalities, these health issues, the digital divide are important things that we need to tackle together. It is the only way that we could benefit for innovation, technology, youth, community engagement, gender, people with disabilities, and bring it back and better, greener, in a more inclusive manner. This is the only way that we could reach peaceful, stable, and inclusive society. That's the plea that the Secretary General is making, be it at the G7, the G20, at IMF meeting, the World Bank meeting, and all the meetings that we are participating to, bilateral or international. This is the way to go. We are one humanity. Let's face the issues together and build a better humanity for everyone, everywhere. This is my advocacy, and this is the way that I think we should go. Climate will be better tackled. Resilience will be better tackled. And of course, communities will be happier and will take more stance in fighting this COVID and building forward better for better economy and jobs. And frankly speaking, Rwanda is doing well, and we will continue to support the efforts with all the stakeholders, development partners, civil society, private sector. And this is the way to go.
Mr. Fode Ndiaye, UN Resident Coordinator for Rwanda, thank you for taking the time to speak to RTV News.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was insightful. Now, the Speaker of Rwanda's Chamber of Deputies in Parliament, Honorable Donatille Mukabalisa, on Tuesday received members of the Nigerian Parliament and briefed them on the various functions of the Rwandan Parliament and a number of its programs. During their visit in Rwanda, the Nigerian MPs say that they have benefited a lot from the Rwandan Parliament.
We learned a lot from the lecture. We observed that the sharing in our own country, we don't reserve position for women. But what we recorded today, we reserve about 30% for women, and we have even reserved for youth, and also put with people with disability. It's not done in our country. Our country is survival of the fittest. If you're a woman, if you're strong, go for it. If you're a man, go for it.
Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies of the Rwandan Parliament, Honorable Donatille Mukabalisa, emphasized that the visit of this MP symbolizes the relationship between Rwanda and Nigeria. It is something we are proud of, because when parliaments maintain a relationship, it is always helpful in terms of exchanging ideas that benefit each country's communities. It is even more beneficial as we not only meet for dialogues, but also in other programs of which we have in common, such as organizations in which the legislatures meet. So the relationship is aimed to improve the well-being of the people in different countries. The MPs from Nigeria were also briefed by the Rwanda Governors Board about Rwanda's journey after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi to promote unity and on the country's development strategy. Now, farmers who use different methods of irrigation on small plots of land say that since the introduction of this method, they have increased their yields in general and especially during the dry season. Now, the Rwanda Agricultural Board says that while there are still obstacles to helping farmers irrigate, there is hope that the government's goal will be still achieved.
Some grow maize and vegetables on small farms and others grow edible fruits in Murire and Gishari sectors of Rwamagana district. They see that irrigation has increased their productivity and reduced the labor. We used to carry jerrycans to water our land, but that was hectic. Today we are happy that the labor is less. We now water 6 hectares in just 3 days, and before, even 100 people would not manage that. We are grateful to the government that shaped our mentality and helped us acquire equipment. We are now getting good yields. Where we used to get 3 tons, we now get 3 to 6 tons. There are others who practice agriculture but still use traditional methods of irrigation and are calling on the government to support them so that they too can increase productivity. Irrigation has played a big part. We did it manually and would not work for days after that because our crops would even go dry. If the government can help us get the machines, then we would do the rest. Dr. Buchagu Charles, the Deputy Director of the Rwanda Agricultural Board, says that despite various obstacles, steps are being taken to help the farmers participate in the irrigation programs and help achieve Rwanda's goals. Demand is increasing every year, but the budget is not increasing. It requires us to indulge the private sector and partners. Another obstacle is the cost of living because the scheme requires each citizen to pay 50% of the cost. So if the engine costs 500,000, it is often not possible for people who do not have enough resources to even earn half of that money. In partnership with partners, we are looking at how we can advocate for the community so that this does not remain an obstacle. We are also using technology that does not require as much money because we use solar panels. Rwanda has set a target of irrigating an area of 24,574 hectares by 2024, up from 800 hectares in 2017. To date, 20,784 hectares, or rather 84% of plots, have been irrigated. The program has already been attended by about 16,000 people who have already accessed small surface irrigation equipment, including solar panels. According to RUB, each year, the program is allocated a budget of 1 billion Rwandan francs to help irrigate an additional 3,000 hectares annually.
On Tuesday morning, one of the Kigali's most popular carpentry centers, Akachiriro, was for the 3rd time engulfed in fire, which has destroyed merchandise valued 400 million Rwandan francs. Gabi Muvunyi has more of this report.
Some workers at Kachinjiro say the fire was reported to have started at around 8 a.m. and that it was caused by the welding work that was being carried out next to a mattress shop. We were just working. Then we saw flames and smoke from the mattress shop. Not long after, we see the fire spread further. At the same time, people were running in all directions. All I could see was thick billowing smoke. I was scared to turn back because I could see the fire quickly spreading and there was a whole crowd of people. I could see the mattresses burning. Some of those who operate at the center say they have lost everything because they do not have any insurance. I sell wooden doors. All that I had has burnt down. I used to sell up there when it burnt down the last time. I had no insurance because when I go and apply for it, they deduct more money than we make. And I felt that I couldn't afford to sell my goods if I pay for insurance. I heard that the cooperative is in insurance because I heard the last time they paid people. But to be honest, I don't think we will get paid. The president of Adargwa Cooperative, Tade Twadirayesu, says the buildings are insured but the contents inside should have been insured by their owners. On the side of faulty electrical installations, he says they're now going to address it. Here, there is equipment that requires high voltage. We are now going to make new measures. We are going to renovate the electrical installation. Instead of having many power sources, we shall have one general one to avoid any future accidents. This is not the first time there have been reports of accidents at Kachinjiro in Gisozi, with 2 other major fires confirmed by those who work there and another 5 minor ones in the last 3 years. Gabi Muvunyi, reporting for RTV News.
Thank you, Gabi, for that report. Now, residents from the sectors in Bugesera district that had been under lockdown say they shall now look out for each other when it comes to respecting the COVID-19 preventive guidelines. Now, the district administration acknowledges that the reason for these sectors having been under lockdown is complacency towards stopping the spread of the pandemic. Gloria Motesi continues.
Some people are still seen moving around without face masks in sectors that were under lockdown in Bugesera district. However, speaking to some of these residents, they point out that the lockdown taught them that indeed no one should overlook the set guidelines for the pandemic. During the lockdown, it was a tough situation because we weren't working, so survival was hard. But we thank God it's been lifted and that none among us has died from the virus. Among the measures we took, we wear our face masks and we follow the set guidelines as we are told by the authorities. Those that go against this are the ones that spread the virus. And so for this reason, these residents vowed to look out and be accountable to each other to see to it that all preventive measures are respected and adhered to. The main reason and the main lesson that we have learned is to be each other's keepers and remind each other of the importance of protecting one another. We don't wish for a third lockdown. Initially, we would only wear the face masks after we have seen the youth volunteers, but now it's our own initiative. Bugesera District Mayor Richard Mutabazi says poor perception of the residents in these sectors towards COVID-19 set guidelines is why the lockdown had been imposed in some of the sectors of the district. He also goes ahead and urges the residents to not be complacent and avoid a surge in infections that can cause such stringent measures to be taken. We've learned great lessons. Through dialogue with the residents, we urge them to adhere to the set guidelines, not out of obligation, but rather make it their own initiative so that we can move on with our day-to-day lives without going back into lockdown, as well as urging them to not be complacent at all. But for the most part, many people are indeed adhering to the guidelines. 5 sectors in Bugesera district had been put under lockdown based on the high number of infections. However, among the 10 sectors currently under lockdown across the country, none of them is in Bugesera district.